I want to welcome you to the next Founders Live Conversations. And I am Nick Hughes. I'm the founder and CEO of Founders Live. And occasionally we open these rooms and host amazing guests to have quality conversations around relevant things for entrepreneurs. Today we have Dr. Teri Baydar. She is a very important person in my life. Dr. Teri, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. It's good to see you. And it's awesome to have you here. I'm going to go through a bit of a quick introduction, but then would love for you to just say hi and maybe share a little more things. But by day, Dr. Teri Baydar plays many parts in the lives of those around her. During the decades, she has spent coaching high potential individuals. She has filled the role of mentor, of friend, of confidant, counselor, healer, educator, the CEO whisperer, and I can attend to that as my own personal Yoda. We've been working closely for a number of years, which that'll probably pop up in this conversation. When she finds time between writing, coaching, and teaching meditation, Dr. Teri devotes herself to Love Conscious Human. Can't wait to hear about that. One of a kind educational platform designed to elevate your consciousness and raise your state of being. She's also the author of Flip Your Switch, a user's guide to a whole new mind. And that is right there. And I will hand it over to Dr. Teri to at least just say hi and maybe share a little more thoughts on anything that I just said there. But we're going to have a great conversation here.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. I've worked for a long time in basically developing people, developing minds and hearts. And at this point, that's really become my niche. I work mostly with social entrepreneurs, and I do a lot of work with learning and development people in order to transform cultures within small and large organizations. And the book, Flip Your Switch, is because I can't coach everybody. That's just not feasibly possible, you know? So I wrote the book on the journey of what it means to develop yourself like you would develop yourself if you were the CEO of a social entrepreneurial organization and you wanted to move the needle in the world and do something about whatever's going on, about whatever you think your calling is, and how you would like to see the world change. So that's how you elevate yourself in order to elevate your relationships, your business, your finances, pretty much everything in life.
Awesome. It's a great book. I've read it at least once, if not gone through it twice. And you wrote it so that it can be just a reference tool in the sense you can jump right in at any chapter, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's called a guide, a guide, because it's not just something you read and then it's some kind of attained knowledge. The book is actually a journey, and it's all of the little things that an evolving human goes through. And from that place, you want to be able to jump in and like something's happening, you need to figure something out, go here, and there's most of the chapters are tiny. There's a lot of them, 52 chapters, 52 weeks in a year. It's something you want to keep using and evolving with. It's not just a one-time deal. It's not knowledge. It's know-how and bringing yourself up, elevating yourself to a knowing where you can make decisions and take actions from a much higher level of consciousness, which changes the outcomes hugely.
Yeah. And that really leads into the conversation we're going to have today is really around, we've titled this Guarantee Success by Reframing the Game. And, really we're here to interview and talk with Dr. Teri on how, the concept of flip the switch, which is amazing, but also let's pull that into success as a founder and an entrepreneur. And where I would like to start with this is, what is success anyway? Let's maybe just start with definition of success or redefinition of success from your standpoint, Dr. Teri, to help us even craft a foundation of this conversation. And I want to remind people, the chat box. If you want to ask a question, feel free to type it there. We can bring you in the conversation. We want you to, if you do wonder and have a specific question about maybe your situation, we're here for you. So, but with that, what is success?
Yeah, so I think we have to, first off, there's a lot of debunking that has to go on around success. Most of the time, we are told what success is according to arbitrary, abstract, exterior parameters. And of course, this creates a lot of suffering for a lot of people. Let's be clear. Somebody else's dream, somebody else's journey is not success for me. Success for me as the individual, or you, the individual, is really about how to become the best version of yourself, have the best relationships, the happiest life, the best finances, create the best products according to where you are, what you came here to do, and what is meaningful for you. We're so much fed from the outside all the things we're supposed to do that we get lost on what we actually came here to do. And so the number one thing that people have to do is look at those social and psychological constructs that are getting in the way and defining things for them that are not appropriate for them. Identify what's getting in the way. Most people, most of the time, are stuck because of the exterior social and psychological constructs that hinder their actual evolution and success.
Yeah, yeah. And I can personally identify with this. That's something that I do plan on sharing a little bit. But let's pull out some keywords that you just said. I loved how you said other people's definition and experience of success is not my definition or experience of success, or yours, you all here. And I'm assuming most of you are here in the sense where, this is Founders Live. You discovered this talk in some way, shape, or form. And so you probably have something that you're working on. You would identify as an entrepreneur. And it is a crazy world out there where we're bombarded with this version or definition of success that when we don't have that exact thing in our life or whatnot, or those aren't the things necessary in our life, then naturally we're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not successful?
Yeah.
That is the root, one of the roots of this thing that is getting in the way of people moving forward.
It's a really big root. It's like the dandelion root, that you really have to dig deep to get out. Because there's the fallacy around, now we talk about the happiness formula lie and the sickness of more a lot. The happiness formula lie, which most people can easily identify, which is once I get the right house, the right spouse, the right job, the right bank account, the right car, I get my kids into the right school, and like all those things, then eventually I will be happy. That'll equal happiness. That setup, that structure is a lie. And it applies to everything because we do it in business too. Once I get my company scaled to this level, or I hit this amount of income, or I have that kind of client, or once we get the product launched, and once this, it's a lie. That's actually not what's really going on. Do these things happen? Yes. Is it good to have achievements and milestones? Of course, it's goals, but that's not what's going to equal happiness. Happiness is a state of being that gives you the power and the energy and the belief and the confidence in yourself to move forward and do all the hard things that you need to do to achieve those wonderful goals. But it's not something that you get after the fact. It's something you create here and now that drives you, gives you energy. It's fuel. It's fuel that moves you forward because you're good enough. You're okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, again, for people joining in, Dr. Teri has been really an amazing person in my life for quite some time. We're going on, I think about, it's got to be 5 years, if not, 4.5 to 5 years that, she came into my life, and we have a frequency of meeting and talking about these things. And I can share that it was pretty clear, probably to both of us, but became very clear to me that this was one thing that I was really like snagged on. I was snagged on it. And what was happening was there was a very much the external definition that was naturally told to me. So being a founder in this industry, we listen to, there's a ton of media. There's that only write about, they're using the word unicorns, okay? $1 billion companies. There's venture capitalists that are the ones that provide the investment into companies, and they're now blogging or podcasting and talking about inherently their words are the only companies I value are X, Y, and Z, or have to be this big, or have to have a vision of and a business model that's a certain method. And the result is that two things that I determined that I was doing was, number one was, whether I really knew it or not, I was definitely comparing myself and my company and the brand Founders Live to those sort of external things. And two, it was tremendously negatively affecting my internal happiness and the actual success that was happening that I wasn't even seeing.
Right.
So I'm here to tell you all that it took me a while to unlayer this thing that has now, as you've seen, has really been, as I've grown through this, we're now seeing success in many, many, many different directions. And I'm very happy about that. Now, of course, there's goals. Of course, there's things we want to do. But that was my story. And, it's open for you to kind of, share your thoughts around that as well. But I just want to put it out there that naturally, most people are probably going to fall into this thing because that's what we're taught by our world and our media and all of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what you want to bear in mind, especially when dealing with those people who say they want to fund you, or tell you, if you pretzel yourself and your company into a certain shape to please me, then I'll fund you. Those kinds of dialogues are basically, what's the underlying thing you want to hear is not, I want to help you. I want to help myself to you. I'm going to say that again. These financiers don't want to help you. They want to help themselves to you. Why? See, in order to monetize, in order to make money, they need somebody who's going to create value. Value and money do not equate. Money is the result of created value that has been monetized. Value needs to exist in order for them to make money. They're not in a position to create value. They're in a position to move around the dollars from one account to the next in all sorts of zero-sum operations. No gain, no loss. They're just moving stuff around. In order for there to be gain, they need somebody with ideas, blood, sweat, tears, hard work, energy, human capital, resources, somewhere that they can extract value and turn it into dollars. So bear in mind, you are the prize. What you can create from your mind, from your community, from your know-how, from your daily activities, from the coming together and brainstorming, all the things that you can create, those are all potential for yourself and others to have value. And that value is what they're looking for. So they're out there saying, waving around their dollars, saying, come to me, I'm going to help you. That's just a bait and switch. They're not there to help you. They're there to give you money so that they can help themselves to you. You are the prize. Your products are the prize. Your know-how is the prize. So that's what you need to develop. Don't worry about them. They're going to show up. They're going to chase you down. Don't worry about them. Do your thing. Create the value that you came here to create.
That is so that is so special in really understanding. Yeah, well said, as Chris says, and so special in just in that's inevitably that's the reframe. All right. And what I had to do was shift from that external amount of money or revenue or whatever pleasing those investors and thinking that they're there to help versus, and look, I mean, we've talked about this a number of times, but yeah, they're there, and raising money or not is actually the totally different conversation, and there's pros and cons to that. Awesome, that could be talked about later, but fully understanding success, clearly happiness in personally, this is a reframe around that, and really focusing on that value. And I think the best way to do this is let's look at Matthew's question, because I think this falls into kind of the next evolution of this is, Matthew says, this usually leads to the next question of how does someone detach from finding happiness by manipulating external environments, those sort of things, and then and discover it in the moment. And then if happiness isn't determined externally, what do I really want anyway? Now, these are now the looking in the mirror tasks and actions. But, how, Dr. Teri, let's go with now, with that being understood, how does someone really look internally to uncover the things that success for them and happiness and what they really want to do?
So, Matthew, this is the journey. Okay. So this is the journey. Nick has taken a couple years to get through it. Lots of my clients have taken a couple years to get through it. Paying me. Here it is. Amazon, $20, $10 if you go for the ebook. Okay. Super easy. What is this saying? There's 3 steps, 3 basic steps. One is in part 1. The book is in 3 parts. The first part, first off, you got to debunk all the outside stuff that's making you crazy and keeping you stuck. Okay. Social psychological constructs about what you're supposed to do. These are the rules of the game. You have to obey. There's so much there. That's part 1 of the book. It talks about the social psychological constructs. It reframes how your mind works. This is not psychology. It's been completely, 35 years of study, 10 years writing it and boiling it down. I wrote the book 6 times. Why? Because every time I needed to make it more simple for anybody and everybody in every single language across the world to use these simple universal constructs. They could replace the bad ones with good ones and understand how this works. So part 1, debunking things, reorganizing how your mind works, how the world works. Part 2, that's the knowledge part. Part 2, the know-how. There's some stuff you got to do. You got to try some stuff, and you got to do it for yourself. And you got to taste some. It's like I talk about going like into like a smorgasbord kind of situation where you go into and it's this huge buffet, lots of things you have to try and taste, see what suits you, what doesn't suit you. It's like, too spicy, too sweet, too hot, too cold, whatever, until you find your sweet spot. Then you know it here, you know it here. And that's what part 2 is about. The how-tos of shifting yourself to understand yourself better, what you came here to do, and why you want to be an entrepreneur, or why you want to create something. We're all driven to do these things. Part 3, you move into a knowing. This is something that Nick's getting really good at, by the way, is there is a knowing. You get to a place where you're no longer encumbered by all of that stuff that was taking up space in your head, in your heart, all of this entanglement, this confusion. No, you really know. You know in your head, you know in your heart. What you're doing, it might be fuzzy. You might not know exactly like the product that you're going to put out there, but you have a knowing of what you came here to do, how you want to move the needle. And that knowing is because you've understood your own mind and the constructs that are holding you back. You've done that, you've cleared the runway. And then in number 2, you've done a little experimentation. You've allowed yourself to fail small and to fail often. And then in the part 3 is and that brings on so much energy, so much fuel to move forward. It's because it's just obvious to you, even if the whole world is blind to what you're doing, it's obvious to you, and that feeling drives you from the inside. The external circumstances are not bugging you anymore. They're just like, oh yeah, I know that. That's called this and whatever, and I don't need that. And then you get to redevelop and redefine, like we're talking about the reframe. You get to redefine things from your point of view. How'd I do, Nick?
Very good, very good. And yes, this is so on point. And I'll just add, so Matthew's basically, I asked that question a number of years ago, just so you know. I was like, wait. So if all this, then that, what now? And this is now the journey that I definitely have personally, been on, which has been incredible. The few things that I will note here on those 3, and again, the book is just awesome. It's an easy read. It's in the sense it's a nice read. And so I would encourage you all, but the kind of number 2, the shifting, was, I would just say initially it's challenging because, I mean, it's exciting because, as you heard her say, it's fun because you can try things, but it's challenging because they're going to seem unnatural. And it's, in some ways when you debunk and then try new things, depending on how you were raised. And I know that there's some people from other parts of the world on this call. And so I can just simply say that these things might feel foreign because this is the first time you're questioning a lot of things. But again, we're going back to what is happiness, and more importantly, what is a path of success for us personally, and then as a founder and entrepreneur. And so you're going to be ripping some things off, and then you're going to be testing out and experimenting with various other things. But then when you get to the knowing, this is the awesome. It feels the most true, that because it's compared to, like, you feel that what you were thinking and kind of how you were growing or how you were operating previously was like not on your rules. And you just were like, well, this is look, I was raised in the United States in somewhat of a, religious aspect, and just, as a Catholic. And so, my previous just ways of being as an American here in the United States, as well as the way I was raised, I popped up and was like, whoa, there's a lot of other ways to grow, build your life, build a company, and add value to the world, and quote, be successful. So I would say the knowing, when you get there, it is like pure oxygen, fresh air. And there's no questioning, because you're doing now what literally was always there. You just had to get down and uncover it, right?
Yeah. Well said. I love that. I love that. It is, and you have to have some patience and give yourself time and just do the work. And not because we're so ROI,
Mhm.
we're so, oh, it has to be this way, programmed. And it does feel weird. It's incredibly uncomfortable because you have to go against some of your own internal programming. And that feels nutty at first. You're like, well, why would I do that? Isn't this the safe way to go? So you have to get out of that safety zone. Yeah.
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 And so, Matthew's next question, I'll answer this, and I would love to hear your thoughts, Dr. Terry. But the true and the truth feels like I would say the first thing is, and you've probably heard this with like even just entrepreneurs, like you wake up every day, and the things that you're doing, if you never got paid another dollar the rest of your life, you would just still do it. Like it becomes like, no, this is my life. It's not like I'm compromising to make a buck or a million or forced, oh, geez, do I have to do that? How many more years do I have to do this? Those are very, very, very clear flags that most people don't even, acknowledge. So number one is like absolutely the like what I do and what I get up, and then clearly the what flows through what you're hearing right now, just like the energy, the passion is it's like a lightning bolt. Okay. And so that's probably number one. I would say number two is the world tells you when you're there. The
Mm,
world literally, like what I mean, like the emails you get, the things people tell you will reinforce if you're there,
yeah.
right? It will just like when people compliment you on what you're building, hey, this is cool. Like all of a sudden you're like, I keep hearing that. That's where you are. So
I
those
love,
the
I
things.
love that, Nick, because I'm going to do a shameful pitch again. So this is not a guide, it's a guidebook, but it's not a guide like, oh, you have to do this. And then it's not a guide telling you what you have to do, what you should do. It's a guide that says, think about this, consider this. And the reason it's written this way is because I'm not creating an external guide about what you have to do. I spent 35 years figuring out what happens if you plug into the natural way of evolving as a human. So if you're naturally evolving, what happens is synchronicity kicks in because you're actually making those shifts inside yourself, in your mind, in your heart. Well, then actually what you start to say and how you show up and your agency in the world changes, it shifts. The energy shifts. And then what comes back to you is just a result of that. And so it starts to tell you, you get the feedback loop. So you don't have to follow something rigidly like it's an Excel sheet or a program. No, it's you being you, taking into consideration the things that are being pointed out. How can I use this? How does this show up in my life? What does this actually mean? I'm curious. And from that point, things around you start to shift because you're opening up, you're considering, you're rethinking, you're reshaping your internal and mental, emotional landscape. And then you show up a little bit differently, and then it comes back to you a little bit differently. And then you're like, oh, I didn't realize that how I was showing up differently. Look at that. And so you can watch yourself incrementally shift through these different levels of awareness and empowerment, self-empowerment. So this book will be a completely different experience for every single reader because it's your life. It's your journey. I'm just pointing out, I'm like a Sherpa. I'm going to carry some of your bags and point out the best pathways, but you got to haul your ass up the mountain. There's only you doing it.
Yeah, yeah. And what this is great. Keep the questions flowing if y'all are thinking some stuff. The this is why not only was this titled guarantee success. I would say it's part of the shift that I've made is really around, no, success is 100%. It's in my life, it's now 100% guaranteed. Because why? Success is about expectations in a lot of ways, meaning like if you're successful, it was literally just because there was an expectation that was then met and fulfilled. If we're now, you do this work and you go down through, and then you essentially redefine and reestablish, the path and, what does success mean to you, it becomes 100% guaranteed. And then I believe the next thing that comes into play is literally the law of compounding and the law of attraction and we're not going to get woo around that. We're going to say, no, literally, like when, as Matthew asked, like when I find myself now, and look, I have bad days too. Okay. Like this path is not easy. A lot of times it's fun. It's amazing. We all have our challenging days, but I wake up every day now in this spot, in this place, and success is literally guaranteed because I've redefined it into everything that we've been talking about, but redefined it in my internal determination, not any external metrics. Whether I do want, or personally, or as an organization, as a business, Founders Live, we want to reach certain levels and all that, and that's great. But if they actually are not met ever, that doesn't mean I personally wasn't successful. So I feel like that's an amazing part about it, of redefining this. And so I kind of want to shift into, just some of your, Dr. Teri, some of your suggestions, because heads could be spinning a little bit. And if we're like, wait, what do you mean? So like, I should really disregard any of that external stuff that's generally told to me. And now I'm supposed to determine my own success. Like, where do I start? Outside of the book, but where does someone, what are like two or three things that would help someone really start to more fully discover what they want to accomplish in life and what does it mean?
Sorry, I got distracted there for a moment because I was looking in the chat. So I didn't hear the full of your question. So I want to, but you were saying something about success, and I wanted to like put up a little bit of a red flag. It doesn't mean you're settling.
Right.
Let's be clear. It's not about settling. On the contrary, because you're not settling for what someone else is going to feed you as what you're supposed to do. And in the same way, you're not settling for less because if we get into that comparing mode, like, why am I not Tony Robbins? Why don't, like, I'm a leadership coach. How am I not filling like auditoriums with 6,000 people? Well, that's not who I am. That's not what I came here to do. And I don't have the same message. My life story is what I came here to do. And we have to kind of understand that our limitations, our strengths, our weaknesses, our personalities, our maybe like our weirdness in some ways, or our craziness and nuttiness in some ways, or certain things that we're attracted to for some reason, like why we like certain kinds of products. It's all got to do with what we came here to do. And therefore, it's understanding you are entitled to have a fulfilling, complete, whole life, personally, professionally, with relationships and building things. You are allowed to create those parameters and to fulfill those parameters for yourself in a way that is unbelievably satisfying, because it's in you. It's your story. It's what you came here to do. It's the story you came here to tell. So really important to understand that this comparing is not about good enough, not good enough, high enough, whatever, like we might, or enough money or something that we're comparing. No, we only want to compare and say, what is there out there that I need to learn and bring into my journey. Because I've got the guardrails on my journey and what I came here to do. That's super important to know your guardrails. How do you want to move the needle? That's it. That's what you need to be thinking about. How, what, why do you want to move the needle? That's it. Then you look around. Oh, I love the way they're doing their marketing. I'm gonna take a page from their book. That's what comparing is about. How do I make what I'm doing better by learning about others? That's what competition is. But you don't go and try to do what they're doing. You do your thing. You bring your energy to it. So I wanted to make that, because sometimes it feels like settling. It's not. It's actually the opposite. You're creating something of a higher level from who you are. Okay.
So good. So good.
Can you kind of go back on your question now? I hope I didn't.
No, that was great clarity. And so yeah, I would just say the question in the next phase of this conversation is really like, I think if someone is like head spinning, like, wait, this is a bit different, majorly different than I've generally heard or thought, kind of like a stop, first couple steps, in terms of, redefining their personal success path and what they really want.
So if their head is spinning, what do they need to do?
Yeah.
The first thing you need to do is, like in the first part of the book, you need to debunk. You have to identify what we call social and psychological constructs that are regulating you, that are not in your best interest. We talked earlier about the happiness formula lie, getting all the things, all your ducks in a row, and that'll equal happiness someday. There's the sickness of more. The sickness of more is this lusting and constant chasing, this never enough. I'm never good enough. I never get enough, and it's this emptiness that we try to fill somehow. And that is a social construct that affects most of us. If you look at America, the levels of obesity and the amount of antidepressants that this one nation does consume, like what's going on there, it's the sickness of more. It's people who are feeling so empty, they don't know what to put into themselves to fill it up. So that is like a social construct that's making people sick mentally, emotionally, and it's making people personally and professionally stuck because you can never fill it. It's impossible because you get something, you don't want it anymore, you just throw it away. So it's that sickness of more is something that you can address. And again, I talk about that in the book. There are a lot of social constructs, like when we're talking about the exterior, you have to address that. The number one thing. I mean, think of it, Nick, all the stuff that we debunked together on the journey. Like, that
Wow.
the world that you think you see is not actually the world. The world that you think you see is your perception. It's how your mental, emotional operating system is interpreting what's out there and turning it into an internal narrative. And then you're letting the internal narrative regulate you. And that's where everything goes haywire. The internal narratives are things we pick up along the way. We're not conscious about them. They need to be observed and curated. You need to debunk whatever's not working for you.
Yeah.
The idea is like, I'm not good enough. The world is a horrible place to be. Only if somebody gives me $1 million will I be able to create this company.
Yeah. And I would just mention right there, and again, I'm sharing this, y'all, because I think it's important. that for me, as an entrepreneur and founder, as we really got into this and building something globally and all this, the big one that I had to debunk around this was essentially a combo of capitalism in the extraction capitalism, and then layer on that the whole VC, go get investment, go please these investors. That's the only way to grow and build. And that is not the path that Founders Live has been on. And I'm so glad that uh, we're not. And there's things I can talk about around that, but um, it took me some time to unpack all of that, to realize, as she just said, the world out there is could be and may be different than what is being translated through your eyes and your ears, and that's based on previous, kind of teaching. And amazing. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, yeah, continue on that thought, Dr. Teri, and then I'll look at Matthew's question.
I think you mentioned the extraction, and I think that for the entrepreneurs here, and this is something that we're not told, we're not educated about this. There are two economic systems, and I think it's really important to talk about this, just like top level, so that you can go and investigate this more. Like if you read books like Better Capitalism or The Ecology of Commerce or things like that. There's the extraction model that's been around for a couple of hundred years, that is represented by people like JP Morgan, who, are like, if I can't put a meter on it, I'm not interested. Like if I cannot exploit and extract from it, I don't care about it. Let's not even invent it. Let's not go down that route. I don't care how many people it serves or saves. I can't extract money from it, not interested. That is the extraction model, where we're making billionaires at the top and people at the bottom are not making ends meet, don't have health care, can't feed their kids, or the plant, or they feel like we need to exteriorize costs and dump these chemicals into the river. I don't care about the community. Like that's all the stuff that's happening in the extraction model. It's not holistic. It's a little bit like the VCs we talked about earlier, where they're just extracting value from whatever they can find: people, planet, processes, products, ideas, all of that. They're always extracting so that they can accumulate money over here at the top for whatever reason. Now, there's another completely separate economic structure and system, which is actually natural. And I call it in my book, natural economics. Other people call it household economics, circular economics. There's a lot of names for it. But what that is it's a cooperative economics where lots of different moving parts in constellation fashion are creating value. And there is value that's constantly being created, and that profit is a byproduct of all of this value being created. And so you end up holding the value. It's kind of like holding the principal and only taking the interest. And then the principal keeps growing, and then you only so that's where there's constant creation. Now, this is where I want you all to know the future is going. This is the future of economics globally. We are entering a shift economically where the pyramid has reached its end. I don't know if this is going to take 50 years or 200 years. I'm not sure about the timing. I just know that it has already started. It will continue. So there will be whole industries that are screaming to be born around regeneration, circular economics, and this whole model of where we keep the value going. We stop extracting, we keep creating value. We have regenerative medicine, we have regenerative agriculture, we have regenerative waste management, we have regenerative manufacturing. All of these things are happening. Unfortunately, not enough in the United States, but it's coming. And it's important for us all to know this as social entrepreneurs, as people who are creating products and creating new business models. That's where it's heading. So go ahead and get interested in these two things: better capitalism and the ecology of commerce.
Those are great books. I've read them both, and yeah, this is so Matthew. That in some ways that describes, that second part of her answer right there describes, what we're creating and what we're building, and it I would say it just over time that's the recognition that I went through, and to tie things back to what I said earlier was like I just always felt some sort of uncomfortableness with the extraction model. And I feel a very strong, just again, lightning bolt of like energy and flow with this other model. And it's just naturally how I've leaned, as well as like, Founders Live is now, I've been doing this for almost 10 years, which is great. The very first event was literally March of 2014. Clearly in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, we've really more established and grown. But I always felt really uncomfortable early on. And this shift personally, as well as really looking at things globally with what we're building with Founders Live around the world. It feels really great. Yeah.
Yeah. Just yesterday we were talking about locusts versus bees. Remember
Mhm.
that? I think that's a great model. And I've been kind of like, because one of the things in one of my next books that I want to talk about is called Unity ROI. And I think bees are definitely something in nature that we can look at and talk about Unity ROI. So if we think about how the bee works, the bees are going out and they're just, and we think, oh, bees, pollination. The pollination is like profit, that's the byproduct. See, the bees are not going out thinking, oh, I'm the pollinator. Mm-mm. They are going out trying to simply go find flowers. They're maybe their client, we could call that, and they're gonna get pollen from that. They stuff it in they have little saddlebags on their legs. It's really cute. And they fill up their little saddlebags on their legs. And then they go back to the hive where it's the company that has all of these different roles, lots of different roles on how this community works. It's the company and it's the community. And there's honey being made, there's propolis being made. Some of that goes into a special thing that's given into the nursery. I mean, it's really fascinating. And so then it's all processed into all of these products. The bees are not thinking about, oh, now all of these apples on this apple tree are going to come to fruition because I hopped around on all these flowers as I was pollinating, and my fur was cross-pollinating onto all of these other flowers. See, that is what we call Unity ROI. There's an ROI in having the kinds of activities that are folded into and yield to natural economics. This allows there to be so much more happening. You're continuing to add value and create value, and that is actual real growth. Real growth. You don't have to have you don't need to exteriorize costs because there's no waste. You don't need to destroy communities. You don't need to strip mine. You don't need to do any of these things because it all fits into what's naturally there, and it's all complementary. It's all cooperating the way nature does most of the time.
Mm. That's awesome. That I dropped the link in the chat there for the book, The Locusts and the Bees. Locust and the Bee, it's predators and creators in capitalism's future is so great, and all of this like flows through. the conversation around this. And so we have just a few minutes left, and this has just been an incredible conversation. Let's see, again, I'm hesitating to bring up any other topics because we just don't have so much time. But Dr. Teri, maybe one last thing to share around, just as you've interacted with a number of entrepreneurs, and a lot of them are your clients. Can you summarize this? Just perspective. I'm just hesitant to dive into any other deep topics because we're just going to run out of time. So you're kind of summarizing here your last words of encouragement and wisdom.
Okay, so read the book, give it a try. Okay. I really, it is very helpful. Um, I think as an entrepreneur, one of the things we really want to bring to heart is understanding how we shoot ourselves in the foot, because we are trying to maybe game the system. Don't do that. Think about what you want to do, who you want to be, how you want to show up in life, how you want to move the needle, what you want people to say about you after you're gone. Like, because no amount of, I don't know, like star-spangled kind of successes, or, all of these exterior things, which are great, but they come and go. You really want to think about the things that last, like relationships, or who you're being, how you see yourself in the morning when you look in the mirror. In my book, I talk a lot about what I call war consciousness versus love consciousness, and the different states of being. You want to be in this being that is really healthy, happy, creative, moving people forward, moving yourself forward. Don't try to play games. Don't try to play games. Instead, do your thing. Look to yourself. Listen to, even if it's just a tiny whisper inside, find it and listen to it. So I don't know what else to say.
That's well, there you go. That was exactly what we all need to hear, and I fully agree around really who do you want to be, and that over time it starts to really pull into that view of success, and that's what we're here is we're guaranteeing success by redefining it and flipping our switch. And I think another key here, everyone, is like this is not easy work, in the sense of you're going to dig, you're going to question, as she said, debunk these aspects, and then you're going to try new thoughts, new things and approaches. And what will happen is you will start to feel, like I said, it feels more true. It feels you're not compromising. You're living in the way that you want to, and you're building and creating in the way that feels really most aligned and true. So with that, Dr. Teri Baydar, want to thank you so much. And where can people find more information? Maybe a good question there to end with.
If you want to hire me as a leadership coach, whitelilycoaching.com, white lily like the flower. Instagram, Dr. Teri Baydar 1. LinkedIn, Dr. Teri Baydar. Obviously there's flip your switch in the thing there. And pretty much anywhere. If you Google it, I'm trying as much as I can to be all over the place so people can find me. And got any questions, please just reach out. I'm very open to all of it.
Great. Yep. You find her on all those platforms. Thank you all for being here. And if you're watching on recording or listening, thank you for this. Hopefully I was going to say, made some sense, but I would say actually, hopefully it triggers some further exploration and thoughts, because it has for me. And I really say that's why, where I'm at personally and where the business is and everything that we're doing is a lot because of this work of actually redefining success for myself and the company. So hopefully that worked, everyone. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dr. Teri.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.